Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, and welcome to my favorite hit of the week, because I know it's 2 o'clock on Friday. Chris Dearborn, managing director of Nasdaq's Markets Intelligence Desk, is joining me. And Chris, that means that you and I are wrapping up the week. This is what
we are.
And what a week it has been. But you know what? We're going to go out with a bang, because we had the Russell reconstitution, Nasdaq closing cross at the auction this afternoon, which means one of the most important closing auctions of the year.
Absolutely. The Russell rebalance or reconstitution, if you will, is generally one of the highest volume days of the year. We're looking at probably 10 billion shares on the consolidated, maybe even more. And you wouldn't know it by looking at today right now, because it's really quiet across the day. And that's how important that last sale is today for that Russell reconstitution. So every index, every mutual fund, every ETF that follows the Russell methodology as their investment thesis will have to readjust and rebalance tonight as well. So what that means is anybody who owns any stocks within the Russell 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, all the drill down indices here in the U.S. are going to have to adjust. So whether companies are coming in or out, that trade has to take place at the close today, and that's why we have that such volume. You know, we're looking at north of $60 billion in transactions taking place at the close today. So really just think about, wrap your head around that dollar value. It's tremendous. So really that's an impactful trade.
And it takes place in a second.
Second on Nasdaq.
It's unbelievable.
So it's a real liquidity event. It's really generally not a mover of price for the stocks. So really it's something to be seen. It's we look forward to it every year here.
All right. Well, the headlines dominating the news this week, from a financial perspective, of course, are trade tensions, what's happening with our own allies and trading partners, and of course, what's happening with China. It seems like the rhetoric was really dialed up.
It's really been a taxing week,
yes,
if you see.
Pardon the pun.
Right. So the rhetoric back and forth out of the White House earlier in the week, and then the follow through out of China, has definitely put a cramp into the markets. You can see that over the Dow Jones Industrial closing down for 8 consecutive days. And on top of that, you're seeing the large cap names that are international contractors back and forth, unsure of which direction to go. You know, on top of that, you had the Supreme Court to go into taxes, just changing a little bit. The Supreme Court changed the ruling on state taxes being collected on internet sellers, so like Amazon, Etsy, JD.com, companies like that have to rethink how they do it. Amazon already collects taxes on a couple of most of the states, so that's really not an issue for them. But again, something that gave pause on that taxation issue, where the government's looking to collect funds from areas where they haven't. And then on the tariff side of things, that potential trade war could lead to an unknown entity for the markets going forward.
Well, you know what's going to happen? It's going to hurt small e-commerce, where they didn't have to worry about tax collection on Amazon. Now they're going to have to go and look at their tax policy, and that costs money. And so, you know, it's really going to hurt the small business owners, is really what it is.
Well, if you're a brick and mortar store,
it's good for
a potential bump to it, but not necessarily. If you're buying things online, are you going to stop buying online because you pay taxes? That's what we need to wait and see what's going to happen on that. So again, more to come.
I was going to say, I don't think it's impact me. It's a matter of having the time to actually get to them all. All right, let's talk about crude oil this week. We have OPEC looking like it's going to increase output. Right,
600,000 more barrels a day through the quote-unquote super OPEC nations. That kind of sent a spike into crude. Crude's up over 2.5% today, a little bit higher, different points.
Doesn't that seem counterintuitive, though? You think
really
more supply,
does.
it would go lower. Why do you think it's moving higher?
You know, so on the back of that, we were talking about the trade war before, but really on the back channels, the Americans are really trying to start that negotiation with China. If that does, then that trade war goes away, and that's kind of good for oil, but we're really not sure where that's going to go. I think people are trading the speculation part of it and not the true output part of it.
All right, you know, I was really surprised to not hear about it this week, the Fed stress tests. That used to that dominated the headlines for a week when they started rolling these things out.
It really was, especially after 2008, after the financial crisis. You know, it was really a non-event this year, or this time around, which is kind of unheard of. So all 25 of the banks that passed their test within flying colors means they have enough reserves, means they can raise their dividends, means they can price their earnings, and that's good for the financials. That's good for the S&P Financial Group. They have a little boost on that today, as well as they should. And with that, showing financial health to those banks that have been basically garnered or locked to this stress test environment going forward. So I think that's kind of passing here.
Well, plus regulations are going to ease up.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you have a Republican, on the regulation side, Republicans are very business friendly. For the most part, you take away the trade part of it and the tariff part of it. But generally, regulation is very positive to these businesses, and I think you're seeing that pass through from the tax break at the beginning of the year to the consumers all the way through now. So I think it's every one-off, they're just rolling through that.
All right, let's look at the trading week ahead. relatively quiet. Got some home sales. I have Fed speakers on the circuit. GDP, of course. You guys on the mid and on the listings team, you're going to be busy. You have 25 IPOs over the next 2 weeks.
Wait, so we had 11 this week, which is a phenomenal amount.
Yep.
12 if you include SPAC, and we're expecting 14
so 25
next week. I mean, so Love Stack and a couple of other some big names coming through. It's 25 IPOs within 2 weeks. That front is rolling strong here. We want to thank all those companies and welcome to the Nasdaq family. Congratulations on your pricing and future pricings as well. The IPOs market this year has been strong, and we look forward to a back half of the year with continued strength.
All right. Well, thank you very much, as always, for joining me on Fridays. And traders, thank you for joining me throughout the week. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.